And we are live. This is the Fantasy Fanatics MMA podcast. I am James Lynch. He is JHK. If you haven't watched the show before, basically we go and preview an upcoming notable fight. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about the co-main event of UFC 264, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Gilbert Burns. Can't wait to break this one down. But first, John, what's up, man? How are you?
Good, man. Perfect, man. Today was a long day. I had 10 interviews, one of those record days, but I'm here, man, and I'm energized. I drank like 3 coffees and a Pepsi Cola.
What a way to finish off the day, though, getting to work with me and do this podcast. Always enjoy it. This is like one of the highlights of my week, so really happy to be doing the show here with you. I'm just getting my day started. I did 9 interviews yesterday. Almost had you beat, but there you go. We're going neck and neck. As always, just want to remind everyone, if you're watching this live or the replay, it doesn't matter. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We're trying to grow this channel as soon as we can. We do fight previews every week. We're giving you guys that early look on really upcoming notable fights. And also got to remind everyone to download the Fantasy Fanatics MMA app. I got my picks in this week. I wish I had my picks in last week because I actually did pretty well overall. I think I only got 2 fights wrong, the Bontarin and Schnell fight and the Sean Soriano and Christos Giagos fight. Outside of that, my picks were perfect. So really happy about that last week. And I'm feeling pretty good about this week. We've got Bellator. We've got the UFC this weekend. We'll do our underdog picks later in the show. But for now, we're going to be talking all things Stephen Thompson and Gilbert Burns. Also, last thing, if you guys have any questions, post them in the chat. We'll get to them as soon as we're done our breakdown of Stephen Thompson and Gilbert Burns. The show is basically a preview and then a Q&A, so just keep that in mind. We like to focus on the fight when it comes to the questions, but if you guys have other questions, that's totally cool as well. All right, like I mentioned it there, UFC 264 going to be taking place at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. If it weren't for my damn government, I'd be over there watching the card in Vegas. I think I've gone to every international fight week the last couple of years, so kind of bummed I'm not going to get to see this one, but nonetheless, this is the co-main event, Gilbert Burns, Stephen Thompson. As we usually do, we talk about how we got here with this fight, right? So Stephen Thompson coming off that big win over Jeff Neal. He's been, in that range of getting a title shot for a while. He had that one little blip with Anthony Pettis. We'll get into that in a sec. But, Stephen Thompson looking to get closer towards that title shot. And for Gilbert Burns, it's about being a contender still. He's coming off the title loss to his former teammate, Kamaru Usman. So now he has a shot at redemption of, maybe winning this fight and then maybe one more and getting a title shot again. But your thoughts on the matchup itself? I think it makes sense. I think the only bummer is it's not Thompson and Leon Edwards, but Nate Diaz threw a wrench in those plans.
Yeah, it's a great matchup, and it's a perfect matchup for Stephen Wonderboy Thompson to face a guy that's coming off a title shot. I think that this is going to be able to boost Thompson and even boost Burns if he beats Thompson, because I think Thompson is one of the hottest fighters in the division right now, even though he doesn't get much attention. But you know what, though? If he goes out there, either one of these and puts out one of those like landmark performances, I think they'll be pushing themselves next in line for that belt, man.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Let's zone in first on Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, 16-4-1 record. He's 38 years old, but you wouldn't know it watching this guy fight. He put on a vintage performance in his last outing against Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal was the favorite in that fight, I believe, and Neal was thought as sort of the next big thing, and Thompson really put a halt to that. It was a dominant win. It wasn't like a close fight. It wasn't a fight where, maybe the judges got it wrong. It was a dominant win from Stephen Thompson, about as dominant of a win as you're going to get outside of a finish. So really big win there for Thompson. And then even before that, he fought a similar fighter in Vicente Luque, very dangerous, an up-and-comer as well. He also had a dominant win in that one as well. So 2 straight wins. And here's the crazy thing about Stephen Thompson as well. We'll get into sort of his stats in a second here in terms of the height and reach and all that. But I mean, you could make a case for Stephen Thompson being undefeated almost in his last 6 fights. Now, I know obviously the Pettis fight, he clearly lost. He was knocked out in that fight, but 9 times out of 10, he fights Anthony Pettis. I think he beats him. He was winning that fight. He got a Superman punch. I hate to use the word fluke or lucky or whatever, but I mean, that's about as close as you're going to get to that in MMA. Pettis was not winning that fight. He knocked out Thompson. We've never seen Thompson knocked out in the octagon, so it was a bit of a weird fight there. The Darren Till fight, I thought he won. That was in Till's backyard, if you remember. If you go to MMA decisions, majority media members scoring that fight for Thompson. And then the Woodley fight, the rematch at UFC 209, I also thought he edged that one out, but again, he's putting himself in these situations where at the odd, like the Woodley and Till fight shouldn't have been as close as they were. He should have won those. So, it's an L on his resume. But dare I say Thompson might be one of the most underrated guys at 170. If you look at, who he's fought, who he's beat, and, just the fact that, like I said, he's had dominant wins over Neal, Luque, and also Jorge Masvidal. People talk about Masvidal being this title contender. The last sort of dominant loss that Masvidal had prior to fighting Usman was Wonderboy. So that's another thing to keep in mind here as well. But Thompson's got a lot of good wins on his resume here as well. You got Rory McDonald. That was a big win. I was at that fight. That was in Ottawa with the really with the arena that didn't have any air conditioning. It was not good news there. I remember him knocking out Johnny Hendricks the fight before that. Everyone said, oh, Hendricks is going to out wrestle Thompson. Didn't happen. This guy has been in the UFC for a while, 2012 since he's been in here February. So you got to think of just, the amount of experience he's had in the octagon. And, height and reach wise, 6 feet tall with a 75-inch reach. It's a great build for the division. And just to compare that to Gilbert Burns, he's 5'10 with a 71-inch reach. That's one thing here, John. Like, people talk about how old Wonderboy is. Gilbert Burns is 34. It's not that much, younger than Stephen Thompson. And if you even look at the height and reach here, Burns is, a little bit smaller here, right? Wonderboy's going to have the height and reach advantage. So your thoughts on Stephen Thompson and what he brings to the table? Obviously, exceptional striking. Unusual striking too. There's no one in the division like Stephen Thompson in terms of his striking. So your thoughts on Wonderboy?
That's exactly right there. Nobody in the division, and dare I say, nobody in the whole promotion has the striking of Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. And I think that is the difference maker in every matchup. Last matchup against Jeff Neal, I think a lot of people underestimated Stephen Wonderboy Thompson heading into that fight because they think so highly of Jeff Neal. And I know why they think so highly of Jeff Neal, but Stephen Wonderboy Thompson went in there and blanked him. And he blanked Luque. And he blanked Masvidal. You know what I mean? Like, blanked them, like, through 5 rounds, domination, right? And Jorge Masvidal fight was 3 rounds, and also the Luque fight was 3 rounds. But he blanked all of them, right? Yeah. Like you said, the Pettis fight, that happens in MMA. You know what I mean? You get caught right on the button.
Musasi, Uriah Hall. I could give you a list of examples of fights where, like, a fighter has a misstep and, it's one of those things that happens. They have an look at Tim Kennedy and Michael Bisping. Like, that's a fight. Like, people forget that Kennedy dominated Michael Bisping, and then Bisping goes out there and knocks a Rockhold. Sorry to interrupt, but you do have fights like that where it's like every now and then a fighter will have a weird loss in between there.
Yeah, but he's had a couple weird losses, right? Like that Darren Till. I don't even think he really unanimous decision to Darren Till in that fight. I don't understand that. That just shows you that judging is pretty shitty in MMA right now, and even back then. Like Thompson, man, he's just, if you go through the resume, he has so many bonuses. He has so many amazing knockouts. He has so many amazing fights, man. And he has so many amazing fights in front of him too. Even though he's old, he hasn't taken too much damage. What fight has he taken a lot of damage in? Maybe the Woodley fights. That's it, right? Do you remember him taking damage other than the knockout?
No, like, and that's a great point. Like, this is not a guy who you see in a lot of wars. A lot of his fights are clean. He's and the fights he's losing, like even the Till fight, Till can inflict a lot of damage. We saw what he did to Whitaker. Like, you didn't see Thompson really get beat up in that fight. By the way, I went back and check this out, and this is about as clean of a robbery as you can potentially see here. 20 media members scored the fight for Thompson, beating Darren Till. Just 3 scored it for Darren Till. 20 for Thompson, and one of them was Sean Sheehan. Actually, no, it wasn't Sean Sheehan. It was Sean Ross Sapp. I got to smack him for that. How do you score that for Till? Anyways, but you get what I'm saying. I think most people felt like he won that fight. So if you're looking at the overall resume, I mean, Pettis he definitely lost. Woodley, whatever, but I mean, it just goes to show that like this guy could very well be on a 6-fight win streak as opposed to whatever his record is now. But either way, back-to-back dominant wins, that should speak for itself, right? So there we go. That is Stephen Thompson. Just a closer look at him. Now let's look at Gilbert Burns here. Gilbert Burns, as I can't say anything. 34 years old, 5'10" with a 71-inch reach, coming off the loss to Kamaru Usman. Prior to that, he had back-to-back wins over Tyron Woodley and Damian Maia. He's done pretty well at welterweight since moving up. So he moved up in 2019 when he fought Alexei Kuchikeno, who was undefeated at the time. He was a slight underdog in that fight, got a decision win there. Got a decision win against Gunnar Nelson. And, obviously the Maia win was what really sort of opened people's eyes up. He finished Maia in the first round, then, beat Woodley, and then ended up getting the title shot here. So the thing that's kind of interesting to me about Burns is I think he's might even be, I don't want to say he's undersized, but I mean, this is a former lightweight fighter who had to cut a lot of weight. A lot of people, I remember going into the Woodley fight, people were saying, oh, well, this is a guy that got knocked out by Dan Hooker. And it's like, yeah, but that's because the weight cut was really bad at him. Like, I was at that fight. I remember interviewing Burns, and he looked pretty, drained out. And I definitely think that the weight cut had an impact on him getting finished in the first round by Dan Hooker. So I don't think you can really look at his lightweight record and really sort of, use that as a measuring stick for how he's going to do here. But he's had some good wins overall. Had a lot of finishes. His stand-ups really come a long way. I mean, this was a guy that started in jiu-jitsu, but we've seen the power there. Again, we don't see everyone knocking out Damian Maia type thing. So Burns has absolutely, evolved his game, so to speak. And he even dropped, he hit Usman with his best shot. Usman's just a very durable guy, so he wasn't able to put him out. But I think, Burns hits that shot on some other people, they might go down. So you got to look at what Burns has done. But here's the thing where I think people get get a little bit blinded is you got to look at the overall resume at welterweight. If you look at Wonderboy and you look at Gilbert Burns, Wonderboy has a way better resume overall. I mentioned the Rory McDonald win, Johnny Hendricks. You look at Luke and Jeff Neal, like Burns only has had a handful of fights at 170. And to me, that's not enough of a sample size to say this is a guy that's, like super legit. Like he might be, but we just don't, like, to me, if you're looking at the overall body of work, I would favor Wonderboy in terms of the resume. He's been in the weight class longer. He's fought better guys overall. Like when you look at wins like Cucicano and Gunnar Nelson, they don't look so good right now. I mean, I don't even think Cucicano's in the UFC anymore. Gunnar Nelson, not really what we thought he is. And even Maya's fighting Bilal Muhammad right now. Maya's on the tail end of his career as well. So, and Woodley, like this is what I'm saying. Like it's really tough. Like if you look at it at 170, Gilbert Burns does not have a single win over a legit ranked guy right now. All of them are against kind of iffy guys. Like Maya would put him in that category too, just as getting a little bit older. But saying that, Burns comes from a good camp. He's getting pushed all the time. He's got good training partners. Burns can absolutely win this fight. I just don't know where I stand, so to speak. And we'll get to our pick in a second here. But your assessment of Gilbert Burns obviously has evolved since moving up to 170. But, I do wonder how the striking will go when he's facing a guy like Wonderboy.
When you look at Burns and you look at his resume, the lightweight portion of his career, you got to kind of erase that out of your mind, right? Because of the weight cut. And I feel like that, didn't play well for his health, at lightweight. But when he went up to welterweight, he's a perfect example of a fighter that grabbed opportunity by its balls. You got to go back and listen to, remember what he did. He went out there, he was doing the Kevin Holland before Kevin Holland, right? He was going out there fighting whoever they offered him. And then that's why he was getting those opportunities. That's why he got the Damian Maia fight. That's how he got the Tyron Woodley fight. And it led to the title fight, right? And I thought stylistically, he had a good chance of beating Usman. And he did have a first round that was very good. That was on the feet too. But it just, it just didn't last. It just seemed like, we know Usman, he's one of the best in the whole, in this generation, he's probably one of the best, right? So, Burns goes in there, but I still think Burns has the ability to get back into that title contention. And this is the fight that could put him back in there. This fight, maybe another one after this, if he wins it. I'm not like, I'm not like you, James. I'm not saying that he's, he hasn't fought nobody, because I think he's fought Woodley, and I thought Woodley was still pretty good at that time. Just Burns was much better, and the trajectory of his career was at a different level. And Maia, I don't know. That Maia win is, I don't know. I think Burns took that advantage, and went in there and knocked out Maia. Maia, we've seen him in the last couple of fights, not so great, but I still think Burns is in the prime of his career, just like Thompson is. And this fight is going to be a lot closer than I think people, believe it's going to be.
We'll see. And that's what's so interesting about this fight, is we don't really know how it goes. And by the way, I think this is the next best option for Wonderboy not fighting Leon Edwards. Gilbert Burns, great opportunity. Because again, if Burns wins this fight, he's back in the driver's seat. He's maybe a fight or two away, or you could even argue maybe is, close to getting a rematch. I don't think they'll do it right now because we just had that fight this year. But, if he beats Wonderboy, especially a finish, that puts him right back in that category. And conversely for Wonderboy, he's been waiting for a fight to, get him back in the title shot. Unfortunately, a Jeff Neal and Vicente Luque is not going to do that. But you beat a Gilbert Burns just based on his ranking and who he just fought. I think you could absolutely make the case for a title shot as well. And another couple interesting things I forgot to sort of add to this. I did have a chance to speak to Wonderboy last week. I got some insight into his camp. This is a negative for him. No Chris Weidman, right? That was a big part of his past camps. And not that Weidman's really close to Gilbert Burns. He's a wrestler and he's got some striking. But I mean, that is sort of one thing to keep an eye on. Now, interesting thing, and you saw my tweet the other day when I had it up there, he's bringing in Ryan Hall. I know there's a relationship there dating back to when they used to train together at TriStar. Is Ryan Hall, going to be the difference to beat Gilbert Burns? Probably not. But the fact that Hall is a very unorthodox jiu-jitsu practitioner, that'll be good in case this fight goes to the ground. But that's a big if. How many times we've seen Wonderboy taken to the ground and tested on the ground? It just doesn't happen because he's got very good takedown defense. This is a guy who's working with, guys like Carl Reed, who you remember on Contender Series, who's an outstanding wrestler. He's getting to work with other guys that are, sort of shoring up that side of his game as well. So we'll see what type of camp he's come up with. Again, I know he's bringing other guys in, but I did like the Hall move as well. Who else did he work? There's someone else he worked with, and I can't remember.
But, I wanted to throw something in about the Hall thing, because Hall's jiu-jitsu is completely different from Gilbert Burns.
Of course, yes, exactly.
Gilbert Burns just beat one of the best jiu-jitsu players in the world like 2 weeks ago. Yeah, dominated him, right? And Gilbert Burns, man, his top game is second to none. Ryan Hall's more of a leg lock guy. I don't know how that fits into the equation. And like you said, I feel like Chris Weidman was more of a value than Ryan Hall would be in this camp. You
For
know
sure.
why?
Yeah.
Because of the wrestling, and also Chris Weidman is very good with submissions. You know what I mean? He's not like a slouch. You know, he's a black belt, right? He learned under Matt Serra. He's very good. I think that would have been a better fit for this camp, but we will see, like you said. But I heard Gilbert Burns brought some secret weapon in to help him prepare for Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I don't know who exactly it is, but I heard that there's somebody there, some like unorthodox striker.
Could be. I don't know. Unless it's Israel Adesanya, I don't know who else is going to really match that tip. You know what I'm saying though? Like Thompson has such an interesting karate stance and karate style that you're not going to get elsewhere. Just a couple things I got to point out as well. And by the way, that other training partner I was thinking of was Chase Hooper. I know Hooper got to spend some time there. That wasn't for Thompson. That was for Hooper, obviously. But I just thought I'd bring that up as well. But if you look at it here, Thompson never been submitted. And the last submission win for Burns was the Mike Davis fight, which was back in 2019. So I don't think that's the strategy. I think the strategy is, I think Burns has fallen in love with the stand-up. I think he feels like he can finish Thompson similar to Anthony Pettis. The other thing we got to bring up as well is at some point, Thompson's going to slow down. Is it this fight? He's 38. You know, he didn't show it in his last fight, but we also got to point out with Thompson, he hasn't fought a ton, right? Like he fought Neil in December. He's now going to be fighting here in July. That's a long layoff, to not be fighting. And you're seeing after every fight, he's getting injuries. His body is slowing down a little bit. Before the Jeff Neal fight, it was Vicente Luque in November. Before that, it was the Pettis fight in March, earlier that year. So he's not fighting as frequently as I'd like. So that is one thing to sort of keep in mind there. The activity level definitely goes to Gilbert Burns as well. But this is my thing. I don't think Burns is going to try and take this to the ground. To me, he's fallen in love with the stand-up. I think he feels very confident that he can do what Pettis did, which is knock Thompson out. And I think that's a bad idea because why try and go toe-to-toe with a guy who's got unorthodox striking, something that you're not used to? He's never fought a guy like Wonderboy before. Why not go to your bread and butter and work your jiu-jitsu? But saying that, again, when have we seen Thompson on the ground? We just haven't seen that too often. So that's what makes this fight very interesting for me as well, in terms of, what will be the game plan going into the fight here. I do see it standing. And we got to point out, with Thompson being the bigger guy, is Burns going to be able to get in on the inside? It's going to be tough to say. I mean, you could argue that Thompson could be fighting at middleweight, although he's fine, cutting to 170 just with his build in the division as well. So this is a little bit interesting there as well. All right, let's get to the pick. I think you guys kind of know where I'm going on this one. I do like Stephen Thompson in this fight. And to me, it's just not only the resume, not only the overall body of the work, not only the fact that I think this fight's going to stay standing and I would give the edge to Thompson, but it's also a 3-round fight. I don't know if, I think with Thompson's style, this should be 5 rounds, by the way. If they're giving Nate Diaz a 5-round fight, why are they not doing that for this fight? I don't get that. This should absolutely be 5 rounds with the implications involved. But no, I think Thompson, he's going to go out there and look great. Again, I feel more comfortable picking a Thompson at this point, similar to what we had last week with Oliveira and Chandler, where I think if you look at the overall body of work, Thompson has fought better guys in the weight class. So for me, I feel better picking him because we have more evidence of him getting it done. You could be completely right, John, where Burns is getting these impressive wins over guys he's supposed to beat. It could be that he's that good, but again, those Gunnar Nelsons and Kuchikeno fights, it's like Thompson hasn't fought anyone close to that. He's fought much better fighters. So that's where, for me, I feel better picking a Stephen Thompson. So what I think is going to happen in this fight is it's going to stay standing. Thompson's going to be able to pick his shots. He's going to frustrate Burns. Burns is not going to be able to get in the inside. He's not going to be able to take Thompson to the ground, and he's not going to be able to work his ground game because Thompson's going to be so good on his feet that it's not even going to get there. And Thompson's just going to frustrate him, and Thompson's going to win a decision. He's not going to knock out Gilbert Burns. We've seen Burns finish by Usman, but in general, very tough guy to finish. I don't think we'll see a finish. I think we'll see a Thompson decision in this one, and I will be looking for that decision prop because it's only a 3-round fight. If it was 5 rounds, yeah, maybe we'd be more inclined to say a stoppage here, but I just think Burns is going to try and come out, do what he can. And plus, he's coming off a loss here. Wonderboy's coming off 2 wins. There's a lot of pressure on Burns to prove that he's a contender, a lot more pressure on him, in my opinion, to get it done. So I'm going to go Stephen Thompson by decision to get it done over Gilbert Burns in the co-main event of UFC 264. What is your pick?
Thompson is 38 years old, right? And I'm just waiting. I'm not waiting, but I'm just wondering, will this be the fight where he shows his age? Will it come out in this fight? That's what I'm looking at right here, right? Because we know he has the skills. We know he can move, but once his speed and his movement goes, then nothing's going to really work for him, right? And could we see his age catch up to him in this fight against Gilbert Burns? Because what I see Gilbert Burns doing is going in there, of course, striking with him because he comes from, he's coached by one of the best striking coaches in the game, and he's fell in love with the striking. He's been knocking guys out, or at least knocking them out and then submitting them, right? So I see him going in there, striking with Stephen Thompson. If he's not getting the better of it, or even if he is, he's going to go in there and he's going to clinch him. He's going to clinch him and drag him on the fence. Clinch him, drag him on the fence. and try to tire him out. We know Thompson has a great gas tank, but we haven't seen anybody go in there and clinch him and try to drag him. You know what I mean? Not even Woodley could do it, right? So I think Gilbert Burns will be able to do that. I think his wrestling and his grappling is good enough, and I feel like he's going to go in there and drag him, and then eventually he's going to be able to take him down. And he's not going to be able to take him down just once. I think he's going to be able to take him down a few times. And when he does take him down, I think he's been able to finish him on the ground, like third round. I feel like it's going to be a third round finish. Gilbert Burns, submission or TKO on the ground. And Thompson's going to show his age. I love Thompson, man, and I love his style, but that stuff catches up to you. And I think Gilbert Burns is the guy.
That's so interesting. Well, first off, I love this is like one of the first times we've had like a total disagreement on a fight, which is great. And we can definitely talk some smack once the fight comes around. I mean, we got lots of time. It's July. But yeah, I don't know. I just can't picture it. Like no one's really done that to Thompson. Even the first Woodley fight, which he did get dropped in that fight. I was at that one. That was UFC 205, one of the best cards of all time, by the way. I still felt like Thompson was still you remember it was kind of boring fight leading up to the third round or the later rounds, and then Woodley dropped him. And then of course that's what secured the draw. But I mean, you could have almost given that to Woodley as well. But I think the fact that Thompson's been able to survive that. And the other thing is like, you know, he's fought guys with knockout power, like Masvidal, Till. Those guys can, you know, punch your ticket out. And the fact that Thompson was able to survive that is interesting. So we'll see. You could be 100% right. This could be the fight where, you know, Thompson doesn't look like Thompson. But I don't know, man. I've yet to see any evidence of that. And the fact he fought a guy in Jeff Neal who's, in my opinion, got similar power to Burns, not the pedigree, obviously, with the grappling and everything else, but the fact that he was able to neutralize a guy like Jeff Neal, I think he can do the same to Burns. But we'll see. I think it might be a case of me underestimating Burns, perhaps, and maybe overrating Thompson. But I like Thompson in this fight. I think he wins the decision. And I think he does so pretty decisively in the sense that, you know, I think it'll be a clear decision. It won't be like a robbery or anything like that.
Also, Luque fought Thompson, and I think Luque is probably helping Burns out in this camp.
He is.
Even though if it's not physically, it's, you know, they're very close. They're calling each other all the time, and he's probably helping them out, film study, all of that. You know what I mean? And I think that's a huge value for Gilbert Burns in this fight.
Could be. By the way, shout out to Vicente Luque. His son was just born today. I saw that on Instagram.
Oh, really?
So congrats to him, the first time dad.
Him.
It's weird. I thought he had, when I interviewed him, I was like, oh, is that like, how many kids is this now? He's like, oh, this is my first. I was like, I just assumed you were a dad. You're such like a mature person for your age. So
we got his doppelganger that works with us.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm surprised he's here doing the show. He came straight from the hospital. So there you go. Our producer, Michael, who looks a lot like Vicente Luque. We'll get him on the show one of these days so you guys can do the doppelganger comparison. So there you go. I'm going Thompson. He's going Gilbert Burns. We'll talk more about this, I'm sure, closer to fight time, and we're going to be previewing this. We'll be posting the preview closer to fight time as well. But yeah, we're definitely on board with this fight. It's going to be a good one. Okay, so we'll get to some questions. Again, before we do that, just hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you download the Fantasy Fanatics MMA app where you can do your picks every week. We've got Bellator on Friday. We have the UFC on Saturday as well, and we'll do our underdog picks a little bit later in the show. But for now, we will get to some questions here. Let's get to the